Good morning, welcome to EduSet Network. Friend, as you are aware, this week we have organized series of lecture on computer sciences and particularly wireless network. In last class, we tried to understand the basic fundamentals of wireless network. Today we will move further and we will try to understand the different aspect of wireless network like LAN, local area network, MAN and WAN. There are different terms you are aware. So, and for discussion on this very topic, we have in the studio Dr. D.K. Lobial. He teaches computer science in one of the premier university of the country, Jawaharlal Nehru University. He is associate professor there, and his area of expertise is this. So I think his knowledge and experience will help us to understand wireless network and give insight to, for further studies. So on your behalf, I welcome him for EduSet lecture. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Amarinji. Friends, good morning. Yesterday we talked about the physical characteristic of a wireless channel, and that to each when we use wireless communication, where you go on LAN, WAN, MAN, as Amarinji said in the beginning. This is what we will be talking today, but the communication characteristics remain same whatever network LAN, WAN you use, because the noise that we talked about yesterday, the interference and the fading which occurs in wireless channel is a physical characteristic of a channel, irrespective of the kind of network on the above layers you use. So therefore, understanding the fundamental characteristic of a wireless channel, this is what we covered. Now we will move towards how different kinds of wireless networks are available. Now similar as our wire network, we have wireless LANs, we have wireless MAN, and we have wireless WAN, that is local area network, metropolitan area network, and then we have wide area network. These are three categories that also exist in wireless network. Now if you look at wireless LAN, we have personal area networks, where the Bluetooth technology, which every one of you might have heard or having available on your mobile phones today, falls under local area wireless network. That too is a personal area network. And second category in the wireless local area network could be what you call business LANs, which you use in your offices, that you use an access point which use a protocol called 802.11. It has various categories: simple 802.11, it has 802.11a and 802.11b, 802.11g, even N today and P also. This is what we will discuss today primarily, but the other category, if you go on wireless MAN, that is to cover the larger area. See, keep one thing in mind, when you talk of local area networks, metropolitan area networks and wide area networks, generally when you talk to the student, they define them in terms of the distance covered by a network. To a abstraction, as a level of abstraction, to the higher abstraction level, probably this definition is correct. But if you, those who are a student of a technical course, probably this definition may not suffice in technical terms. What I mean to say is, at the technical levels, the difference between LAN, MAN and WAN, that depends on the protocols used by LAN, MAN and WAN. That means what I am trying to say here is, the protocols used by local area network are different than the protocols used by metropolitan area network, and so the protocols used by wide area network. So the technical student must understand that the difference exists in terms of the technology, not in terms of the distance. Say if I can afford to have a switching network in a small area which will cost more, then shall I call it a local area network? No, because the kind of protocols it is going to follow are the protocols used in wide area network or metropolitan area network, but distance is small, but I am using the same technology. So the distance does not matter in terms of the technology, but for a layman to understand what the difference, the distance may be a good differentiation to make out, rather than going into deep into the technical details for a layman. Now, that is what the difference you have to understand. Now, the second category what we have said is a wireless metropolitan area network. One of the network airfalls is a wireless local loop. That is, from your telephone exchange, when you have a telephone line to your home, generally we have a wide line you see in the cities, but in the remote areas earlier, rather than carrying a wire to a longer distance from the exchange, and because there are very few subscribers, it may not be feasible to install or establish a new exchange in a area, small area, rural area, in a village where the subscribers are not sufficient to fetch you the required economics or the money. So, therefore, they will have a wireless local loop. That means, from exchange to the subscribers premises, there will be a wireless loop. That means, the communication link is completed by wireless medium. That is what we call wireless local loop. So, distance is also exceeding, because from exchange to home, that is what the layman says, the distance in wireless MAN is more than wireless LAN, but at the same time keep in mind the technology used here is a local loop technology, not same as what we have been using in Bluetooth or in 2.11. And third category, if you look at in the metropolitan, in addition to wireless local loop, what we call is one is LMDS, that is called local point distribution system. When the cable television came, and when all cable communication began with the digital communication, because earlier the television signals which were coming to at home were based on analog communication. When digital communication started, so there is a distribution point at cable operators from where from a single point to multiple homes the signal is transmitted. That is what we call LMDS. So, the distance is more again, and the technology is different. That is why it falls under wireless metropolitan area network. And same you can have also a free space optics. That means, to transmit a signal in a free space, we can also use optical signals. So, to a deep space or probably what you call in a vacuum, these light signals may be useful. That falls under what you call metropolitan area network. And the third category here is wireless wide area network. And I have put three subcategories here. One is a cellular network which you are using today for your communication, what you call your mobile communication, and this subsequently we will have a series of lectures tomorrow and after tomorrow, and we will have more lectures on that. That is one of the network which all the viewers, all the listeners, all the students using these cellular networks. And then one of the network in that category you hear most of the time is you use GSM, and sometimes say, okay, where you are using your phone is a CDMA alliance or a GSM technology based. So, GSM, which is called global mobile systems, global system for mobile communication. If you look at GSM, global systems for mobile communication, that is what the full form is the technology used in our wireless communication from home to the base station for voice communication or calling the people. And now you may hear 3G, that is the advancement or the data rate on the same digital communication for voice. And the second category here is a satellite systems. And I like to explain here, rather than having these what you call mobile phones through a base station, that means a tower nearby, had it been done through satellites, that means I will communicate from my mobile to a satellite, and the signal from that satellite will be transmitted to a receiving mobile. So, that means you do not need existence of the towers where you talk most of the time nearby whether the tower is available or not, and you say when the vertical lines are not seen in your mobile phone, you say the tower is missing, there is no tower, and that means there is a tower from where the signal comes to your mobile through a wireless. Now, instead of using these towers, that means these towers has to be established before mobile communication begins. So, if you remove these towers, probably what could be a possibility is you should have satellites on the launch in space, and they are working as if they are working as a tower, and that is where the Iridium project of Motorola was one of the satellite systems. They started with launching of a certain number of satellites, because a satellite will not cover a point on the earth all the time. Why? Because if the satellite is at the lower orbit, it will be moving faster than the speed of the earth. Therefore, it will not be pointing on the same point all the time, one. And if you launch it to a higher distance, where it will relatively move, rotate or revolve at the same speed as earth, then the distance is high, the delay is more. So, that is why you have to launch satellites at lower height, but you need more number of satellites. That is what the Iridium project of Motorola started. That is one example of the satellite systems for communication. And third category of this wireless wide area network is your paging system. Now, that is almost every one of us uses mobile phone. Earlier, if you remember, when we do not have mobile phones cheaply available, paging one of the options. Still, some of the companies use paging. That means you leave a message and that message will be delivered and you will get a response. It is not a two-way communication most time, it is one-way communication. You leave a message, that paging system. Flex is one of the paging system initially developed by Motorola. So, these cellular network, satellite systems and paging networks, they fall under the category of wireless wide area network. So, now what I said, three categories: wireless LANs, wireless MENs and wireless WANs. Now, let me begin with the wireless LAN, that is what we will focus, and gradually we will move to in the next lecture on wireless wide area network. That means, we are not going to cover wireless MENs, wireless metropolitan area network, because they are very specific to certain applications which probably may not be more useful, and LANs are we use day to day basis in your offices, probably at your home, and WANs are also used in communication, that is cellular communication is one of the greatest example of communication. So, now let me begin with what you call is wireless local area network, where I will be focusing on how this 802.11 works. Now, if you look at this wireless LANs, the component of a wireless LAN is a station, a mobile node. It may be your laptop, it may be a PDA, that is personal digital assistant, or it may be even at times your mobile phone today. You have a quality of mobile phones which also have a Wi-Fi facility. So, these Wi-Fi's enabled mobile phones can also work as a mobile node, which are communicating with a access point or communicating with simply a modem at your home. So, this is what one of the component of this wireless LAN is a mobile node, and another component is an access point. That is, all nodes will communicate through this access point. So, to have a local area network, access point is one of the mandatory requirement. Now, based on this, we have two kind of sets, service sets. One we call a basic service set. That means, a number of mobile stations will be connected to a base station or to an access point. So, that means, there is an access point and there is a set of a number of mobile stations connected with this access point. That means, some of the mobile stations are falling within the radio coverage range of this access point. So, these mobile stations will communicate with this access point, but the number of mobile stations that can connect and communicate to an access point are limited in numbers. Now, why it is limited in numbers? Because the access point connected to the mobile stations connected to an access point, if they are communicating simultaneously, then they have to use different channels, and the number of channels available with an access points are limited. So, with the limited number of access point, only at a given point of time you can have limited number of mobile stations connected to an access point. Now, therefore, if you have more number of mobile stations to be used in a local area network, then one access point is not sufficient. So, therefore, we can have another set of, so this now basic service set, that means an access point along with a set of mobile stations communicating with this access point is called a basic service set. So, now you can have a basic service set A, where access point connected to the set of mobile stations. You can have a basic service set B, where another access point connected with another set of mobile stations. Now, we have two basic service sets. Now, these two basic service sets can be connected together and working as if they are the same system, not differentiated at two different service sets. That means, the basic service set is being extended to more than one basic service set and working as one service set. That is what you call extended service set. Now, for example, if you look at this diagram, we have various places APs and other two, we have AP is connected with some laptops and PDAs. There is another AP, it is connected with the laptops and PDAs, and these APs either are connected through wireless or these APs may be connected by wired. So, that means, if you look at this building, you may have access point in this room and you may have access point in some other room little far distance from this room, and these two access points, look at this diagram, you have two APs, one is in blue, another is in pink circle, and these two APs, I have written AP, are connected through a wired link, and the laptops or PDAs either in blue circle or in pink circle are connected with respective access points, but the access points are connected through a wired link, and we call this, all three APs together are called an extended service set. So, we have three basic service sets, pink and two blue, two in blue, one in pink, and they are connected through a wired medium and these APs, and that three basic service sets connected together, we are calling it an extended service set. So, now, and below, if you look at, we have a pink and a blue, and they are ad hoc network, which we are not going to discuss. So, we look on the upper three ones. Now, that means all these access points or the PDAs or the laptops, they are all using 802.11 protocol designed by IEEE. IEEE is one which is responsible for basically designing protocols for wireless local area network or other networks, and the 802.802 is a committee constituted by IEEE for designing local area network protocols, and that is why you have 802.123, that is what the most common 3, 4, 5, 6, then you may be hearing 11. So, 11 is for wireless network, 6 is for metropolitan area network, and 3 is for Ethernet, or you and 4 is for token bus, and 5 is for token ring, so and so forth. So, IEEE, this 802 committee has been defining protocols for Ethernet, token bus, token ring, metropolitan, as well as for wireless local area network. Even you have 802.16, which is for WiMAX, and you may have 802.15, which is probably for your Bluetooth, as well as you have a vehicular communication, they are used. Now, so if you look at the protocol architecture of 802.11, what you see is it has a medium access sublayer, and under this it has a physical layer, and the physical layer consists of a PLCP sublayer, that is physical layer convergence protocol, and then below is a physical medium dependent sublayer. So, that means what it comes from the MAC layer is this PLCP is converging the MAC layer data or MAC layer information to a physical layer. That means it is working as a layer between physical medium as well as medium access control, and then you have a physical medium dependent layer which will decide what are the characteristics of physical medium. That means what kind of frequency the physical system is going to use, and whether it is going to use DSS, direct sequence spread spectrum, or it is going to use frequency spread spectrum, and what is the data rate the physical medium is going to use. This all depends on physical medium dependent layer, and that layer and what is the data coming has to be converted accordingly. Now, so there are certain motivations for wireless LANs. Now, we have already existing wired LANs, and we have designed certain protocols and used certain protocols, and you may be well aware that the most commonly used protocol in wired LAN is ANOD 2.3, which generally we also call it an Ethernet protocol. Now, it has certain characteristics. Then the question comes whether the medium access method or the protocol designed for wired network fixed network can not be applied for wireless LAN. Why it is so? Now, to explain that, look at one of the things which I have written here, example CSMA-CD, that is carrier sense multiple access with collision detection. That is what the full form is given in next line, and how this protocol works, and then we can also talk why doesn't it work for wireless network. Now, one of the characteristic of this protocol is that station which is ready for transmission of data will first sense the carrier. That is what carrier sense mean. Carrier means the medium, and the station ready with the data for transmission will first sense the medium whether there is already some transmission going on or not. And why it is called multiple access? Because at the same time more than one station may sense the medium or may be willing to transmit the data, or at the same time more than one station is trying to access the medium. So, there is multiple stations or systems accessing the medium at the same time. That is what multiple access mean, and therefore, all stations which are trying to access the medium or trying to have a data to transmit at the same time and trying to access the medium will first sense the medium whether already some transmission is going on or not. Why it is important is, if more than one station transmits data at the same time, then definitely there will be a collision. That is, if I speak, if somebody here in this room at the same time speaks with the same louder voice as I am, then both the voices will collide and the listener will not be able to listen anything. So, therefore, only way out is, we know that the medium is common and it has to be shared between multiple stations. Therefore, there must be a coordinated effort that who will access the medium first and who will not be accessing the medium or waiting to access the medium. So, therefore, what you need is, you need a mechanism that will coordinate the access to the medium among multiple stations, so that the collisions can be avoided, or collision can be prevented, avoided, so on and so forth. Now, if you prevent the collisions, then we will call it a contention free, that means collision free, that is then only one at a time will be, but it cannot be a multiple access, or you have to have some other protocol which will coordinate and schedule, that we are not going to discuss. But if you say collision carrier sense multiple access, so what is happening is, if a station is sensing the carrier before transmission of data, and as soon as it finds the medium free, then it will immediately transmit the data. That is what we do in CSMA. Now, if more than one station are sensing the medium at the same time, and the medium is free, then both the stations will find at the same time that the medium is free. Therefore, both will grab or capture the channel and transmit the data. and since they transmit data at the same time, therefore, the data will overlap in the time, and that overlapping of data in time is called collision. That is what the technical definition of a collision is, the overlapping of more than one data packets or packets in time is called collision. Now, if that happens, that will cause error in the packet, and therefore, the data transmission is not successful, because successful does not necessarily mean only that it failed to transmit, but it failed to transmit correctly is also a failure of transmission of data. Now, the moment we said this, now one of the way in wired network is to detect that the collision has occurred. Why we need to detect? Because once we detect that the collision has occurred, then a station will come to know that the data which I have transmitted has collided. Therefore, I must retransmit the data. If you do not detect it, then how does a station come to know that the collision has occurred? Therefore, it has to retransmit the data. So, that means the collision detection is very, very important in case of wired network, and that information is passed on to the transmitting station, so that the transmitting station can make another attempt of transmission, and again the collision may happen. So, again the same will happen, it will make another attempt. So, it keeps on trying, retrying, and probably till it successfully transmits the data. Now, if you look at theoretically, collision after collision may occur, and retransmission after retransmission may occur, till finally a station is successful in transmitting the data. But if a station makes attempt by attempt infinitely, then there will be no other station will be getting a chance. Now, it cannot have that a station will try one after another, make one other after another attempt, that is not possible. So, there has to be a maximum limit in practical sense, that how many attempts a station will make if it fails to transmit its data packet. So, practically there is a theoretical limit, practical limit on that, but theoretically it may be infinite. So, keeping that apart, now the question is, if a station sends the medium, if it finds medium is free, it can successfully transmit the data. If it finds that the medium is not free or the medium is busy because some other station is transmitting, then it has to wait for another chance. How long it will wait? It has to wait till the ongoing transmission completes. Keep one thing in mind, at this point of time when a station was sensing, it finds it is busy, it waits. That means, at that point of time the ongoing transmission will go successfully. But it may also happen that more than one station might have been sensing together simultaneously, and both finds that the medium is busy and both waits. When both waits for the medium to become free, the moment medium becomes free, both of them will grab the channel with probability 1. That is what sometimes we call it CSMA 1 CSMA. That means it transmits with grab the channel with probability 1, and then immediately both of the stations transmit, again the collision will occur. That is what we try to avoid collisions, and if it occurs we detect it, but you can't prevent it. That is what we are saying. If we need to prevent it, then we have to have some other kind of mechanism, but 802.11 does not give you a provision to prevent the collisions. Now, that is what, but the collision detection occurs in wired network, and which is useful. You may be saving time because you are immediately intimating the sender that your packet has collided and make another attempt. But that is what A0 2.3, which is Ethernet, uses. And one of the important point I like to discuss, because which may be useful for A0 2.11 is that A0 2.3, which is a commonly used protocol, also uses a backoff mechanism which is called binary exponential backoff. The meaning hereby is when the collision occurs and it gets detected, that means more than one station they simultaneously transmitted their data and that collided, and then both of them will be intimated of the occurrence of the collision. So, both of them have to wait and then make another attempt. But now it may happen if both of them waits for the same amount of time and again make an attempt, the collision will again occur. So, therefore, they must not wait for the same period of time, so that the collision can be avoided. How does it happen? That means, when they come to know about the collision, they must wait for different times. That is what you call, they must wait for a random period of time. So, that is how the random back off, that means every station backs off for a random period of time, and that random period of time is chosen as some multiple integer multiple of some what you call slot time. And how do you select that integer? Because slot time is fixed, some may be waiting for 2 slot time and other may be waiting for 1 slot time or 3. That integer multiple, that integer, the value of the integer has to be selected randomly, that is why it is called random. And without going into details how this random time integer is selected, one thing I would like to make very clear is that the random number you are selecting from an interval, that interval keeps on increasing as the same packets keep on colliding one after another time. So, that means first time if they collide, the interval for selection of random number is small. If second time they collide, then it extends in the power of 2, that is why we call it exponential. That means, if it is say 2 raised power n, if n is 1 first attempt, if second attempt at n is 2, then third attempt it is n is 3, n is 3 means 8. So, a random number is selected between 0 and 8. Fourth time n is 4, 2 raised to 4 is 16. So, a random number will be selected between 0 and 16. So, every station, 2 stations whose packets are colliding are choosing a number between, if it is fourth attempt, they are choosing a number between 0 and 16, 2 raised power 4. Therefore, both the stations may not be selecting the same random number, because the random number selection algorithms running on both the stations. Therefore, their waiting time may be different, but at some certain point of time that the random number selected may also be same, and therefore, that is why the collision also occurs second time, that also happens. So, but that is why it is called exponential, because it happens in the power of 2, and it is binary because we are taking in the power of 2. So, it is binary back off, and exponential 2 raised power it comes in the power of 2. So, it is binary back off algorithm. So, same could be extended towards wireless, but this protocol cannot work for wireless. Why? Number 1, the reason why there are problems in the medium access of wireless network, and therefore, this 802.3, the access mechanism which I talked right now, cannot be straightway used in wireless LAN. One of the reason is the signal strength yesterday which I talked about is the strength of the signal decreases as we travel more distance, it decreases more. That means, it is proportional to the square of the distance. So, therefore, there is no linear, it is non-linear because square of the distance, and therefore, one, and second is sender will apply carrier sensing and CD, but the collision happens at the receiver. One of the problem is, if the collision occurs in the wireless medium, while 2 packets collide, but at certain times that a sender sends a packet and the receiver receives it, and there is a collision at the receiver, that can also happen. But sender may not hear the collisions which are occurring at the receiver. And here one of the important point is the collision detection in wireless is not possible. It has multiple reasons, because number 1, wireless channels are more susceptible to noise. Second is that the signal traveling in A to B and the signal traveling from B to A, number 1, they may not be symmetric. In a sense, the power for transmission of a signal applied by A may not be same as the power applied by B. That is what the asymmetric networks are. That means, the N naught 2.11 we are using on one on A may be using some other power for transmitting of a signal, and station B, which is a receiver, that will also send an acknowledgement or also transmitting a packet, may be using different power level. So, how much distance a signal travels depends on the power applied by the transmitter. So, if you apply more power, it will travel to a more distance. If power applied is small, then it will travel to a smaller distance. So, therefore, one is that the signal may arrive in one direction, but may not arrive in another direction, right. Like say, if both A and C, if you look at LAN, channel to be ideal at the same time, they send at the same time. Collision can be detected at the sender in Ethernet, and right. And whereas, if you look at B, if A transmits, if you look on the right side, if A transmits a signal to B, and C may also transmit data to B, and A and C are not within the communication range of each other. That means, what is A transmitting cannot be heard by C, what is C transmitting cannot be heard by A in wireless LAN in the diagram. So, but what is A transmitting can be heard by B, what is C transmitting can be heard by B. So, therefore, if A is transmitting and C is transmitting, because A cannot hear C and C cannot hear A, therefore, if collision occurs, and even if you detect, you cannot, it cannot, if you tell to A, you tell to C, it cannot happen, because the signals, they are not hearing each other. If A transmits that there is a collision, C will not listen, if C transmits, A will not listen. But it may happen that A, so the carrier sensing which you are doing, A will find that the channel is free, and C will also sense that the channel is free, because what is A transmitting cannot be heard by C, what is C transmitting cannot be heard by A, therefore, they will find that the channel is free. Whereas, since both are willing to transmit to B, both finds that the channel is free, so the carrier sensing is not working properly here now. Why? Because two stations which are transmitting at the same time are not within the transmission range of each other. But however, the station to which both the stations are transmitting, that is B, B is falling within the transmission range of A as well as C. Therefore, since A finds medium is free, B is not transmitting right now. So, A finds medium is free, C finds medium is free. Therefore, both will transmit at the same time, and the packets from A and C will arrive at B, and there will be collision at B. But this is not the case with the Ethernet or 8.2.3, because when A, B and C, while A is transmitting and C is also willing to transmit, if A sends the carrier and C sends the carrier, they will find that there is a signal going on the wire, because what is A transmitted goes on the wire, what is C transmitted goes on the wire, because all are connected with the same wire, they are sharing medium. But they are, what is A transmitting is heard by B, heard by C, what is C transmitting is heard by B and A. That means, every node in left side diagram is hearing each other. So, therefore, they can easily detect that the carrier is busy, therefore, avoid, but that is not happening in case of the wireless. So, the collision detection is not possible, and all the time the carrier sensing is not applicable as it is applicable in case of Ethernet LAN. Why? Because of the problem that the recipient is common to both the senders, and both the senders are not within the transmission range of each other. So, that is the difficulty why the same protocol which you use in wired network cannot be used in wireless. But however, and that is what we call a hidden terminal problem, that C is hidden from A and A is hidden from C, but B is exposed to both or known to both, and therefore, that is B is a common recipient of A and C, but A and C cannot hear each other, they are hidden from each other. So, that is what we refer to as a hidden terminal problem, and the collision occurs at B. Now, therefore, the CSMA CD cannot work in 802.11. So, what it does? It uses CSMA part of it, that is carrier sensing will be done, that is when two stations within the range of each other, if transmitting and try to sense the carrier, they will sense that the carrier is busy, therefore, they will avoid, they will not transmit. But in case of hidden terminal, that is not happening, that is a different problem. So, CSMA is working, will be used, but it will not be sufficient to work as it was doing in case of wired, because detection is not possible. So, it uses two components, one is the distributed coordination function, other it uses is a point coordination function. Point coordination function is used when we are willing to have a real time data transmission, whereas distributed coordination function when we are transmitting non-real time, and that is in asynchronous mode. We are not does not matter that the time delay is a constraint here. So, DCF is the most important protocol used in 802.11. Now, what is most important here is, now in asynchronous data service we use DCF, that is distributed coordination function, and the protocol used here is CSMA-CA, that CA stands for collision avoidance. Now, there it was detection, here we try to avoid the collisions. Now, how to avoid the collisions? To avoid the collisions, one of the mechanism used is of called RTS CTS, that we will explain. That is, RTS stands for ready to send and CTS stands for clear to send. This is the full form of this, and sometimes if you look at the hidden terminal problem, it happens because B was common receiver of A and C, and A and C were hidden from each other. Therefore, can there be other mechanism of sensing? Yes, RTS CTS, and that RTS CTS, that means what? If you go to that diagram, A is transmitting to B and from other side C is transmitting to B. So, what will happen is, before transmission of a data, A and C will physically sense the medium, that is what you call carrier sensing, and both of them will find that the medium is free, because they cannot hear each other's signal. Now, after this, in case of CSMA CD, the stations were immediately grabbing the channel and transmitting. Here, in this case, that will not happen. What will happen here is that A and C, when they find that the channel is free, after physically sensing the channel, both of them will transmit RTS. RTS is a small packet which is called a control packet, and that small packet is 20 to 30 byte packet. When A transmits RTS, that will reach at B, and C also transmits RTS, that will also reach B. That means, A and B physically sense the carrier, they find free, then after that both of them sense an RTS, and that RTS reaches at B. When that means, the RTS of A and the RTS of C will collide at B. Now, that means, rather than a data packet is colliding, here the RTS packets has collided, one, and second is that if the RTS packet does not collide, that means, when A is transmitting an RTS, assume for the while that C is not transmitting any RTS, that means the RTS at B will not collide. In that case, B will transmit a CTS, which is called clear to send. Why? That means, B is informing A that there is everything is clear, no collision can occur of data packet, therefore, it is clear to send, you can send the data packet. That is what CTS mean. But the moment the RTS of A and C collides at B, then B will not transmit CTS, because it knows that if it allows, then collision of data packets will occur at B. So, therefore, the RTS and A will, since RTS of A and C has collided at B and B is not sending any CTS either to A or to C. So, both A and C, after a certain period of time, when they come to know that they are not receiving any CTS from B, so they makes that the channel is not clear for transmission of data, then they may again make attempt after certain random period of time. So, again use probably may use binary backoff to transmit RTS again, so that the RTS again does not collide. Now, by transmission of this RTS CTS, what you achieved is you have been able to avoid collisions at a hidden terminal. So, that is how the collision avoidance mean, that is what we call CSMA CA, that by RTS exchange of RTS and CTS mechanism helping us to avoid collisions at the hidden terminal 1. And if you look at this, it is also a kind of carrier sensing. By exchange of RTS CTS mechanism, you are also sensing that whether it is free to transmit data or it is safer to transmit data or not. That is the you are sensing here now, but you are not physically sensing the carrier as you have been doing in case of CSMA, where a station physically sense the carrier whether there is an ongoing transmission or not. But here by means of transmission of RTS and CTS, it is also sensing that whether there is a possibility of occurring of a collision at a hidden terminal or not. So, that means you also sense the carrier for collisions, but here it is a virtual carrier sensing. So, in addition to physical carrier sensing, N02.11 is also providing you virtual carrier sensing by means of exchange of RTS CTS. Now, this is one mechanism what you call DCF, and at the same time if you look at PCF, there is a time bound service, because real time applications have a delay constraint. That means the delay in the service cannot go beyond a given period. If that happens, the quality of service may not be achieved. Like if you are watching a live cricket match, if the event is delayed, that means if a bowler delivers a ball and you see it after the batsman has hit the ball and taken a 4, then you will not enjoy it. That means that is what there is a constraint, that the message delivered, that the throwing of a ball by a bowler must be seen by you timely, so that you can also watch how the batsman hit the shot. So, that means the timely delivery of a message is very important in the case of real time services. Now, that is what the PCF probably may be useful. What is it? What is happening is a time bound services by polling. Polling means here the access point will be polling every station. That means access point along with the mobile stations or along with the stations, what you call is a basic service set. So, within a basic service set, rather than a station when it is ready for transmission of data, sensing the medium and then transmitting data if it is free, you are not doing here now. In PCF, what is happening is after certain interval, after a cycle or certain interval, the access point will poll every station one by one. That means what? It will send a polling message to a station 1, say that do you have some data to transmit. If station A has data for transmission, it will respond, say yes I have, and therefore it will deliver the data. And since access point has only polled station 1, the remaining stations are waiting for their turn to be asked whether they have data to transmit or not. So, therefore, there will not be any collision. It is a collision free protocol. When station A has transmitted data, after accepting that it has data to transmit, the access point will poll station 2, and same will happen with the station 2. If station 2 does not have any data, then it will show I do not have any, it will respond, and then access point will poll station 2. So, it will poll station 1 by 1, 1 to m all stations. Once all stations has been polled once, that one cycle is complete, and then the next cycle will begin. So, that means there is a time bound service that the maximum wait a station has to wait for the next turn is, if there are n number of stations, then the station will have to wait for its next turn is up to n minus 1 stations get their chances. So, there is a maximum bound. No station at any point of time can get a service delayed more than n minus 1 stations time to deliver data. That is the maximum bound. So, it is a time bound service in PCF. That is what this is called, time bound service and polling based. Now, in case of DCF, there are two important points here now. After a station transmits a data or some packet, it cannot immediately send other packet, or the receiver cannot immediately send the acknowledgement. So, there must be some gap between two frames or two data frames, or a data frame and a control frame. That is what you call interframe spacing, DIFS, that is distributed coordination function interframe spacing. D is for distributed DCF, IFS is for interframe spacing. Then you have PIFS, P is for PCF, IFS is interframe spacing. Then you have SIFS, that is called short, S stands for short, IFS stands for interframe spacing time. So, in your NO 2.11, you have three kind of frame spacing. There is one more which is used in certain cases, which is called EIFS. E stands for extended interframe spacing. Why interframe spacing is important is 1. Now, when station A transmits data and station B has to transmit acknowledgement. Now, take an example here now. A has transmitted data, and the moment the transmission of data is over, all other stations waiting will find that the medium is free. But you know that the recipient has to send acknowledgement. Now, it should not happen that some other station which have been already waiting for their turn should not send their data before the recipient of A transmits its acknowledgement. So, how will it happen? That means the interframe space gap between that means the waiting time for the receiver to send acknowledgement before sending acknowledgement should be smaller than the waiting time of any station willing to transmit its data in its turn. That means, if A has sent a data and B has to acknowledge, B will wait for short IFS, whereas the other stations which are waiting for their turn to transmit data, the moment it hear that the channel is free, they will wait for DIFS. That means, DIFS is longer frame space time than PIFS, and PIFS is longer than SIFS, and EIFS is the longest one. So, between control packets RTS, CTS, before a station which is receiving RTS, before sending CTS, it waits for SIFS time, and same is with the acknowledgement. That means, when station is sending data and the recipient will wait for SIFS period time to transmit its acknowledgement, whereas the other stations which are waiting for transmission of their data, they will wait for DIFS period of time before they can get their turn to transmit their data. So, if you look at this whole mechanism, why we have made three kinds of interframe spacing is that those which are urgent, like acknowledgement or short control packets, short packets to be transmitted or used for control of a network, needs immediate transmission of data, has to wait for certain short period of time, that is SIFS. Those others must wait for little longer, that is DIFS. That is what we have defined frame spacing period in case of A node 2.11. With this, today I will stop here with the wireless LAN. Probably we may continue tomorrow on this, and next two lectures probably we will be talking on what you call cellular systems and from generation wise. Thank you very much.
Okay, so well, friends, Professor Lovial not only explained but also concluded what we are going to do and what we'll do tomorrow. So, with this word, we wind up the lecture today, and I thank all of you for watching the lecture. And on your behalf, I thank Dr. D.K. Lovial for giving such a wonderful lecture. Thank you very much.